Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic and wonderful. Everything here is great. In 2020, I culled my collection of around 400 games down to 75. And today we're going to talk about one of the games that stayed, and that is San Juan from Rio Grande Games. Now, I've been talking about older games this week, and I've mentioned a bunch of games I don't think you can find anymore. I'm positive you can still find San Juan because this game has had staying power for years and years and years. And it's almost 20 years old. I think this came out in 2004. This is the card game version of Puerto Rico. And if you knew me back when Puerto Rico came out and it became all the rage that Puerto Rico was for a very long time, I did not like Puerto Rico. I still don't. I'll play it, but I don't think it's a very good game. I think it has a problem where the role that you take each turn is super obvious. Like there's one very, very obvious thing you should do every turn, and it's kind of scripted that way. This is a role selection or action selection game, and for a very, very long time, this was my favorite two-player role/action selection game. I think this game works best at two, and that's pretty much the only way I'll play it. Because I think that there are better role/action selection games if you want to play with more than two people, but this one works particularly well with two. So there's a bunch of roles. You take one, you get a bonus from that, and you do whatever it is that you need to do with that. For instance, if you want to build something, you take this thing and you build a building, right? It gives you a discount. That's how role selection games work. This is an entirely card-driven game, meaning that playing something from your hand into play costs you a certain number of cards. For instance, playing a tobacco storage cost me 3 cards. So anything that costs me anything, I have to discard cards to do. So again, if I want to play a building like that, and I'm going to use the builder, I get to pay 1 less. I think that this is a very well-known game, and so I don't know that I need to talk a whole lot about how it works. What I want to talk about more is why this has stayed in my collection. Again, I think it's because this, until very recently, was my favorite, absolute favorite, two-player action selection game. I think that recently, what is the game that... Something has replaced this for me recently, and I don't remember what it is. I'll have to think about it for a little bit. For a long time, this was played in my house every day. We would play this every single day. We would probably have, I don't even know if I have, no, I don't have filled out score sheets. I used to keep my score sheets. This is one of those, again, one of those games with staying power because it was such a pioneer. San Juan, not San Juan, but Puerto Rico, if my memory serves me correctly, was the first role selection game or action selection game where you had a selection of things that you could do and only one person could do it. You took the thing and you did the thing. I'm sorry. It's Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition has replaced this game for me. What was I saying? Oh, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, I believe, was the first game to have this action selection, role selection mechanic. I could be wrong about that. I think that maybe Citadels came later, but I'm not positive. Anyway, it is fantastic. This game is fantastic with two people. And at this point, I have not played it in at least 15 years, and I probably won't play it. But I'm going to keep it. And maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's just nostalgia, but I think that I fell in love with this game because of my distaste for Puerto Rico being completely invalidated by my love for this. This one, this version, this card game version, I don't believe suffers from the obvious problem, especially with two, right? There's not an obvious way to play this game. There is a... On your turn, what I'm trying to say is on your turn, you will probably have 2 or maybe even 3 things that are equally good. And you have to decide which one of those choices, which one of those actions is going to be the thing that makes your turn. Is it building a new building because you need a new, and something new to trade, or is it going to be trading because you need to get more money? There's not there's not an obvious play, which is what I think Puerto Rico suffered from. And so for that reason, I think this is going to stick around in my collection just because it's one of the few games that I have because it's part of my collection. When I culled, from 400, I was a collector at that time, and I had hundreds and hundreds of games I would never play again. They were just part of my collection because I enjoyed them. This one, I think I will play it again. I think that if somebody says, hey, do you want to play San Juan? Sure. But chances are I would play the digital version, not the card version, because, it's just much easier to sit around on our phones and play. But it's going to stay around because I had a very big distaste for Puerto Rico, and this one kind of opened my eyes to that whole mechanic and made me feel like I had spent a little too much time dissing Puerto Rico. So San Juan, wonderful game. Going to stay on my shelf, even if I'll never play it again, just because. I can have a couple of just becauses, right? They don't all have to have deep play time stuff, do they? I don't know. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends, wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know sounds smart is libertine, and is a noun and an adjective meaning licentious and free of moral restraint, or a person so characterized. It's easier to make a saint out of a libertine than out of a prig. George Sanguantaya, author and philosopher. I screwed that all up. Libertine, Libertine. That is a weird word and an even harder to read definition. Libertine. Licentious, and free of moral restraint. Okay.